Welcome back to another episode of What Are You Made Of with your boy, the unstoppable Mike C-Roc. I'm in the house today with Dr. Kien Vuu. Listen, guys, I'm excited to share his story with you. But before I do that, I want to express gratitude because I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful for you to show up and listen or watch this podcast. I'm thankful for the support you've given me. And this is a great opportunity always to start the show with gratitude. So I want to do that. And also, if you want to be unstoppable like me, go get that Rocket Fuel book that I wrote. Convert Setbacks, Become Unstoppable. Grant Cardone wrote the forward. It's time for you to get that and become unstoppable yourself. That's MikeCroc.com/book. All right, let's introduce Dr. Kien Vuu. He's one of the most sought after anti-aging physicians in the country. At his Vuu MD Longevity and Performance Clinic, Dr. Vuu regularly works with celebrities, top corporate executives, and high functioning professionals to optimize their health, performance, and vitality. He's also a health media personality appearing on national TV shows like The Doctors, Access Hollywood, and now the What Are You Made Of podcast. You're going to have to add that to your bio.
I will.
So, hey, enough of that. We'll get into your story now. Enough of the bio. Welcome to the show, Doctor.
It is a pleasure to be on. And Mike, I got to say, your energy is pretty infectious. So thank you for sharing that.
Hey, thanks, man. I have to, because if I don't, I'm just like everyone else. I mean, I'll settle down into my default positioning, which is just getting by and surviving.
Yeah.
So I really have to consciously be aware of this and then bring the energy, man. So, but welcome to the show. And you're an anti-aging doctor. I'm 44. Don't I look like 20?
You do. And you know what you were saying earlier about gratitude, about showing up, about being intentional with your energy, all that is medicine. And all that is anti-aging medicine.
Love to hear that. So I'm on the right track then.
Yeah.
Well, look, I always start the show with the first question. What are you made of, doctor?
I am made of perseverance and resilience. In fact, that's how my parents named me. I was actually born in Vietnam a couple of years after the Vietnam War. We were from the South. We were Chinese immigrants in Vietnam where my parents had me. And when, after the Vietnam War, the communists seized everything. And here I am, an infant. My parents were like, there's no way there's a future for this child here. We need to, take him somewhere else. And so we were boat refugees. I was on a boat for 8 months, was the only infant that survived on that boat.
Wow.
And then spend another 3 months in a Philippine refugee camp before coming to America. And because of all that they've endured, they had named me Kien, which in Cantonese, it's Kien, which means persevering, and it means resilience. And I would probably say it was that both refugee experience, to later on becoming a medical doctor, getting chronic disease and having to reverse that chronic disease, taking that experience of having chronic disease and reversing that, to maybe even getting hit with COVID financially, emotionally, physically, and reversing and being able to come out of that. It's being able to look at all these struggles as gifts, persevering through them, and knowing that as you persevere through that, as we have resilience through that, we become the version of ourselves that could show up best for our family, for our loved one, and for the world.
Man, I love it. And the Cantonese of your name, I guess I pronounced it properly though when you first came on today.
You're beautiful, man.
I knew it. I knew it was Cantonese. So no, I love that. And I want to, what kind of boat was it? Were you ever told what kind of boat or what size? I always wondered that when people,
you know what, I'll show you a picture. I don't, I'm no nautical person, but it was, there was 2,000 refugees in there and we were crammed like sardines. In fact, where my parents were, we were down on the basement level. So it reeked from what my parents tell me. And I was right next to the restroom. So people would have to crawl over our family to get to the restroom. But, I became famous. I was like that baby next to the restroom.
Wow, man.
Yeah.
We all think that we came from different, like, tough spots, but I can't even imagine that, man. I mean, I came from a tough spot, but not like that, so, and was it your parents' dream for you to be a doctor? Did they
it was, certainly it was their dream. It was not necessarily mine. In fact, as a kid, I looked at my heroes. I was like, I always wanted to use my voice like Tony Robbins or Robin Williams. I mean, it was people in the media that inspired me, that people that were able to make people laugh, or people who were inspiring, people who were able to rock the stage. Those things inspired me. But unfortunately, when I grew up, none of my heroes looked like me. I mean, there was no, Asian hero, there was like Jackie Chan or Bruce Lee, but I didn't know any martial arts. So that was really the childhood. I forgot your question now talking about that.
Well, I was caught off. I was just listening to you, man. I forget the question too. No, your parents, if they programmed into you to
Oh
be a
yeah,
doctor.
yeah, that's right. That's right. I mean, they were pharmacists in Vietnam, and for them, their dream was always for me to be able to do more. And they never understood that there could be anything else. I mean, one of the most coveted things to come from that Asian background is to be a doctor. And so I had my desires of wanting to do media, but I didn't have any heroes. I mean, so I told myself the story that what, there's no place for me out there. And my mom, she really gave me three choices. She's like, son, you can be a doctor, an MD, or a physician. And so, as a kid, you always kind of want to make your parents happy too. And so I went into medical school. And it was really also some of those early experiences. I experienced a lot of racism as a kid. I was bullied as a kid. I came in, we were in Chinatown, LA when I first moved here, which was a city and region of immigrants, but I got bused to a more affluent area for school, and was one of the few Asian kids that were in there. And so constantly being teased for the holes in my clothes, the stinky food my mom, made, being told to go back to my home country, and all the ching chong chong, people making slanted eyes. And so I grew up with this concept of really just not feeling like I belong, or not feeling like I was enough. And I did a lot of things to compensate. I compensated by maybe having a larger personality. I compensated by trying to be the very, very best at school. And I compensated by thinking that external things that I would get for myself would make up for the fact that I was feeling empty inside, or not enough inside. In fact, that was probably the seed for my later illness, because chasing that success, the Dalai Lama has a very interesting quote when he said what he found most interesting about humanity. He said, man, because he would sacrifice his health in order to make money, and then sacrifice his money to recuperate his health. And I found so many people, including my clients, who are corporate CEOs to celebrities, feels the same thing, that they were chasing something outside of themselves because they were feeling empty inside. And when you do that, your body creates some kind of stress, and that chronic stress makes you maybe do actions you don't want to do, like not sleep very well, not eat very well, not work on your exercise. And once all those things are off balance, that really sets the stage for chronic disease. So 5 years ago, I was a doctor doing minimally invasive surgeries on tons of people, traveling around the world to speak of this new field of interventional radiology. Yet underneath my white coat, I was overweight, I was diabetic, I was hypertensive, I was on prescription medicines. So I became the doctor who was giving medical advice that had disease myself. And really, that was the point I needed to wake up.
How old are you?
I am 42 now.
Okay, so you were in your 30s. So I went through a phase where from probably early 20s till about 30 something, where I was just, maybe even like mid 30s, where I just didn't pay attention, stopped working out, eating. I'm 5'6" 3/4. I'm not a tall guy. Most people see me, they're like, oh shit, I thought you were taller than that. I got up to 235, and I had a chin. I've been there, and the stress of work, all that. So I figured if I'm going to be stressed at work, I need to prepare myself for battle. So I started figuring all this out too, with the diet and working out and taking it seriously. So I feel you there, man. I can relate to that so much. So then what turned the tide? Was it the sickness? What happened?
It was a lot of things. And again, like I said, my superpower is resilience and perseverance. So that year, it was one, I was overweight, diabetic, hypertensive. Also, I needed shoulder surgery because I had a torn rotator cuff, and I wasn't sure if I was actually going to be able to be a doctor doing surgery anymore. So there was that. I was so engrossed in growing my practice and climbing the ranks of being in the hospital, I neglected my relationships. So the relationship I was currently in that I thought was going to be a long-term relationship, well, she left me for somebody else. No surprise. So it was just a combination of all those things. And I felt just really, really crappy in my life until I met a patient. He was actually a 43-year-old guy, pretty young guy with terminal pancreatic cancer. And I was asked to drain 10 liters of fluid from his belly. When you have cancer, when those cancer cells plug up the drainage systems, you can build a lot of fluid. So, here I am thinking, I'm going to walk into this room with, and meet this poor guy who has terminal pancreatic cancer and this huge stomach. And I remember feeling pretty sorry for myself that day, but I was like, but this guy has it worse. I open the door, I walk in, his name is Ishmael. And he looks at me, yeah, like, hey doc, how you doing, man? And in my mind, I'm like, how is this guy who is about to die have so much love and energy? And so I actually asked him, I said, Ishmael, how are you approaching life this way? And he says, doc, it didn't always used to be like this. I used to be resentful. I used to have a lot of hate. But right now, what can I do? Every single moment, I can choose how I show up in the world. I can choose to show up with positivity, with love. And that's how I choose to be. And, I felt his love, I felt his energy. And I said, wow, that is the power of choice. And after that moment, I said, I'm going to make a choice to reverse my chronic diseases. And I'm going to be able to share that message with other people. So that really kind of started the process off, and just making a few changes. I actually reversed all my chronic conditions in 6 months. I did more deeper work. First I worked on sleep, nutrition, exercise. Then I worked on myself. Who does Kien Vuu want to be in the world? With what I've developed, I am really, really excited to let people know that your health, who you get to be, is really up to you. You control your health destiny. And really, that's the message right now.
I love it. Talk about your mind power and how your mind affects just the mind itself, your health.
No, 100%. Well, two things before I talk about the mind. Let's talk about some emotions, right? The emotions of anger, of hate, of resentment, stress, all those emotions actually increases inflammation, and it lowers your immune system. And that puts our cells and our body in the environment to get chronic disease. In fact, it's all of that stuff that goes on. People in America aren't doing well with COVID-19. The ones that aren't doing well are the ones with chronic disease. And they are in probably a lot of those negative emotional states. Whereas I was mentioning to you before, the emotions of love, of gratitude, of connection, of joy, those are actually emotions that do the exact opposite as those negative emotions. It lowers inflammation, it increases your immunity, and they're anti-aging medicines. So that's emotions. Well, where do our thoughts come into play? Well, our thoughts are actually the filters by which we look at the world and determine whether something is safe or not safe, and they make us feel. So if we have a thought like, I'm not enough, or I am not worthy, or my bank account just took a big hit, everything's going to be over now. If you let those thoughts come in, you're going to start to feel those negative emotions. You're going to start to feel contracted. You're going to start to feel stressed. And what's that going to then do to your body? Like I said, all that will lower your immune system, increase inflammation. That puts you basically on the stage of getting chronic diseases like, dementia, Alzheimer's, hypertension, atherosclerosis, all those things. So that's why our thoughts are so important. And it's good to be mindful of those thoughts, because thoughts are some things that we pick up from the outside. Sometimes they're not even, actually, most of your thoughts aren't even yours. But what can we do? We are the person, we are the observer, and we are the focuser of our thoughts. That's the power of what we can do, is we can take those negative thoughts and say, oh, I'm starting to feel pretty bad when I'm thinking this. Is that really, really true? And I actually have a process that if you're starting to feel really, really charged up, there's actually a process you can do to kind of like calm yourself down, think a new thought, and take new actions towards the outcome you want for your life.
I love it, man. I have a concept. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. I just finished my book. It's coming out anytime now. It's called Rocket Fuel: Convert Setbacks, Become Unstoppable. And it's all about taking anything that would stop normal people. I say normal because most people, or slow them down, storing it in your fuel tank and not your trunk where it weighs you down. This is just the way I reframe what you just said, basically.
Yeah.
And convert it into rocket fuel for your future, so that you don't just get back. Resiliency, by the way, is not a strong enough word for me, because that just gets you back to your original positioning. I want to go past that. I don't know if there's a word for that. So I just created rocket fuel, the rocket fuel concept. And so that you just described that perfectly. I talk about that in the book, and understanding that nothing can stop you if you take everything that would normally stop you and convert it to rocket fuel. So I love it, man. You align well with my show and my message. What's the book behind you? Thrive State.
Yeah, Thrive State. Thrive State's actually out April 6th of this year. And really, it's a concept of how you put yourselves in the position for longevity, for peak performance, and for optimal health. And it's really that energy. It's the energetic environment that we create with our sleep, with our nutrition, with our exercise and movement, with our thoughts, with our emotions, and with our sense of purpose. We actually create an energetic field around ourselves. Now, and there's two main states. We could either be in the thrive state where energetically our cells are thriving and gives you everything for, gives you basically the best version of you, or your cells are in the stress state, which puts you at risk of getting chronic disease. And so I developed a framework where if people follow this framework, they're going to have access to really reclaim their power of their health for optimal health, longevity, and peak performance.
Yeah. So there's trillions of cells. And does it work this way? Since you're a doctor, you would know more about this than I would. But I see these cells, once you get them moving a certain direction, it takes a little while to get that momentum building. And then once you have the momentum building, it's flying, and it takes a lot more to slow it down, stop it, and switch direction either way. Is that how it works?
No, for sure. Every single input, our cells are constantly listening to its environment, whether it be from emotion, from sound, from light, from food, from nutrition. All these are energetically affecting our cells. And I talk about that in my book. But here's the cool thing is if you start to change one thing, you shift that energy. And as you shift that energy, it becomes easier to make other changes. For example, when we talk about sleep, nutrition, exercise, mindset, thought, all these different things, and let's just say you have tons of changes to make your, to really be in that thrive state. If you start with just something simple, you kind of create energetic momentum that builds on each other so that even the harder changes become easier. So you're exactly right with that, C-Roc.
I love it. I love it. So I'm going to be a little selfish here and ask you a question for my sake. So when you started going on this journey, how did you end up on the TV shows Access Hollywood and The Doctors? I mean, besides being in LA and in general, was it through relationships, or did you hire someone, or how did that happen? Can you tell me the process?
You got it. Like when I first said, you know what, I'm going to try to follow my childhood dream. I reversed my diabetes. I want to share this message. I went with a PR agency. And they said, we're going to make your dreams come true. I had no website. I had no message. I had nothing at the time. And I think I had spent about $25,000, $30,000, hired a PR agency, and they didn't get me anything on TV. They come back about a couple months later where I was no longer with them anymore. And they said, hey, they were looking for somebody who could speak on liver cancer. And that was actually something that I did, when I was full-time in a hospital, was treat a lot of cancer with minimally invasive surgery. They said, you know what? The doctors just called. Do you want to do the show? And so they put me on The Doctors. A couple months later after that, this very same PR agency said there's a small show down in like Atlanta, very, very small show called Me Time with Frangela. They need a medical expert. And she said, look, you're no longer my client, but if you pay me X amount of dollars, I could put you on that show. I was like, all right, sure. I'm on that. Then I end up going on that show, did a few episodes. It didn't really hit, national airwaves, but what had happened was one of the producers on that show ended up as a producer on Access Hollywood. And lo and behold, they needed, a few health segments. And, then I landed that. So I think the moral of the story is, have your vision, know what you want to do. Even if things don't work out, you have to constantly work on yourself. And it wasn't like I was just sitting idly, along the way, waiting for the next opportunity to come. It's like, how do I refine my message more? How do I connect better on camera with somebody else, and constantly working on those skills? And then now I'm getting a lot, fortunately, I'm also in LA where there's a lot of opportunity. But now, through my Instagram and through my other appearances, I get to vet out a lot of these different projects that I'm working on.
I love it, man. And when you went on your first couple shows, had you had experience on podcasts prior to that, or did you do anything?
No, in fact, I only started doing podcasts probably, late last year. Yeah. So I've done, TV, and it's a completely different beast, actually.
Yeah. But I mean, I know that, like, for me, I did 300 some interviews last year in the last 12 months. I can just go, Right. And when I get on TV, I'm not going to have any problem. But that's why I was wondering, because when you did it, you didn't have that experience. So you just basically probably approached it as, hey, look, I'm talking to patients, or I'm talking, I'm consulting someone. Is that how you?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So some of that was, natural. I did take a few hosting classes. I would probably say the only thing that's different on TV is everything gets smashed down to 2 to 5 minutes. So you really got to know sound bites. Here, I could, speak from my heart. We can dive deeper into things.
No, I'm gonna
That's not
smash you down.
the case for.
I'm gonna smash you down too. No, I'm just kidding. No, but I get it. No, my cousin was on Channel 3 News in the evening time in CBS in Philadelphia, and when I was growing up, I used to be Pat. Her name was Pat Ciorrocco. I used to be Pat's, cousin, and I used to tell everybody that. And I always used to look up to her. I'm like, I'm gonna be on TV one day. And somehow in my journey, I got off course and went into business. I don't, I lost my purpose, intention, what have you. Same thing as you, though. I'm going back to it now. And I have an opportunity to be on an Amazon Prime show coming up here. It's filming in June. So I'm just looking forward to all that. I love it. I love the fact that you did it. And I just think it's so cool that, our childhood dreams come back to us. Maybe it's our midlife thing or something. I don't know, but it's pretty awesome.
We remember, because you know what, as kids, we like, if we look at animals, they instinctually know what to do, and they instinctually know who they are as people. As kids, we know that we follow the things that bring us joy, but then we start adopting other people's thoughts of what is right and what's wrong, and we lose that throughout time. And I think as human beings, our journey is really to remember who we are and to start to own that again.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you and I are now.
I love it. Well, look, I got two more questions for you. Before I do those two questions, though, what's the best way for my audience to reach you, engage with you, buy the book, whatever you want to?
Yeah, sounds great. So Thrive State book is out on April 6th. You can pick up copies on Amazon, wherever books are sold, or go to thrivestatebook.com. There's a lot of awesome book bundles that you can get there. You could follow me on Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube at Kien Vuu MD. And also my website is kienvuumd.com.
Awesome. Go support Dr. Vuu, guys. We support our guests. Let them know that you were here. All right, two more things. One, I'm working on a project right now. It's a tech product, but I have been involved with digital courses and done some myself, used some myself, but I see a big problem with watching things rather than doing them and having the blueprint. And I saw a big problem in my life, the weakness in my life, and all the success I've had. I didn't document enough. I didn't document SOPs. I didn't document, any of it. And then I couldn't replicate it as easy. I couldn't, it wouldn't be as easy, or I couldn't teach people. So I looked at that as a weakness, and I'm like, you know what? There's an opportunity for this. There's a lot of the market's saturated with digital courses. I created this thing with my partners called Blueprinted, BLO printed. And basically it's going to be create an opportunity for those that have courses, or those that want to coach or teach, or doctors or what have you, to put in a project management format, algorithmic format, step by step, how to accomplish something, so that you have no questions on what's the first step, what do I do here, what do I do next, how does it go all the way through, and if something like this happens, do I do this or this? So we're creating this for people to use this software as a marketplace, and also opportunities to teach people. But how much more successful do you think that we could all be? And in your in your past experience, having the exact step-by-step blueprint to something.
That will save you so much time. You can do it on your own. Like, I'm just about to launch a course. It took me so long to kind of figure that out. That's not my superpower. But if somebody who's already been there, done that, and have been successful in doing that, in terms of where to think and how to think, that will shrink down your process and accelerate it. So that is something I wish I had on my tool belt when I embarked on my journey of the Thrive State Accelerator. I'm going to plug that in. That launches with the course or with the book.
Yeah. So and then you're going to need a blueprint for it. So you'll be one of our blueprinters. I just signed you up. Anyway, so final question here. I always ask this question. We talked about the rocket fuel concept. Going forward, or in your past, give me 2 to 3 sentences. And I cut this, by the way. So this is why I asked this here. What does the rocket fuel law that I explained to you earlier, what does that mean to you?
The rocket fuel law means the following. We always have a choice. And I go back to the phrase from Viktor Frankl: between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space is our power to choose a response. And in our response is our growth and freedom. So whatever has happened to you in your life is your fuel. Whatever your pains are is actually something that is given to you so you can get past so that you can make better choices, so that you can now, as somebody who is healed, as somebody who's the next version of yourself, can give to other people. So your entire life, your experiences, all those pains are now your rocket fuel.
Perfect. Perfect. Great. Well said. And great interview. I really, well, I'm not giving myself props here. I'm talking about the guest, of course. Well, I did pretty good myself too, but anyway, thank you so much, doctor, for coming on. I appreciate you. I look forward to popping out in LA. I haven't been to LA before, and I plan on, once things clear up, making a trip out. So I'd love to meet you in person and look forward to developing a relationship with you.
Thank you, C-Roc, for having me, brother.
Appreciate you. You guys have been listening to the What Are You Made Of podcast with your boy, the unstoppable Mike C-Roc, and the unstoppable Dr. V, as he likes to be called. Go get his book, Thrive State, coming out April 6th. And until next time, be unstoppable.